Okay, let's dive right in. Artificial intelligence is just sweeping through our schools, and it's promising a massive revolution in how we learn. But with this kind of rapid change, a lot of urgent questions are popping up about its impact, its ethics, and how we're supposed to govern it. So today, we're going to unpack this complex new reality. And really, the whole debate boils down to this one simple question. Is AI this incredible, game-changing assistant for teachers and a personalized tutor for students? Or does it pose some kind of hidden threat to critical thinking, to equity, and maybe even to the fundamental rights of our kids? Let's take a look at both sides of that coin. First up, let's talk about the promise, the optimistic vision. The people who are really excited about this see AI as a way to completely supercharge the classroom, freeing up teachers and unlocking student potential in ways we've pretty much only dreamed of.
And let's start with the one thing every teacher needs more of: time. According to some pretty serious research from the Walton Family Foundation and Gallup, educators who are using AI tools at least once a week are saving, on average, almost 6 hours every single week. That is a massive efficiency gain right there.
But that time saved, that's really just the beginning of the story. The promise gets even bigger. We're talking about giving every single student a personalized learning path, making it easier to communicate with families, and even scaling up the expertise of tutors who are maybe a little less experienced. AI could also act as this early warning system, flagging students who might be falling behind so teachers can jump in way sooner. Okay, but here's where the story gets a little more complicated. For all the excitement and how fast everyone is adopting this stuff, we have to stop and ask, what does the actual evidence say? This is our reality check. And, well, this quote from a recent Stanford review is pretty stark. It basically tells us that schools are making these huge, high-stakes decisions about incredibly powerful new tools in a near total vacuum of rigorous scientific proof. It feels like we're flying a bit blind. And just to put that into perspective, the Stanford AI Hub for Education found over 800 academic papers written on this topic. But when they looked for studies with strong causal evidence, the kind that can actually prove an impact, they found only 20. 20. That is a gigantic gap between all the talk and what we actually know for sure. So, what do those 20 studies tell us? Well, the results are nuanced. Students often do better with the AI, sure, but those gains can kind of vanish the second you take the tool away. And here's the other catch. While AI can make tasks easier, that might come at the cost of that productive struggle kids need for deep learning. It turns out the design of the AI itself matters a lot. And this evidence gap, it just feeds into an even bigger challenge, what you could call an ethical minefield. According to a report from the European Parliament, these risks aren't just in the classroom. They pop up at every single stage of an AI tool's life cycle. Think about it. Before an AI tool even gets to a student, there are potential problems. The models might be trained on biased data, which can then perpetuate harmful stereotypes. Teachers' intellectual property, their lesson plans, their materials, is often used to train these models without any compensation. And let's not forget the huge environmental cost of all the energy and water needed to train these things. Then, once it's actually in the classroom, a whole new set of risks appears. The tool might be designed to prioritize simple memorization instead of real critical thinking. Every time a student interacts with it, they could be providing unpaid labor, training a company's for-profit model. And, when we use human-like terms like hallucination, we can accidentally mislead students into thinking these systems are something more than just really complex statistical models. And the long-term consequences? Well, they could be the most profound of all. We're talking about the potential de-skilling of teachers, an erosion of social learning because everything is so hyper-personalized, and maybe even a homogenization of creativity, where students just learn to write what the algorithm likes. Maybe the most worrying of all these long-term risks is something experts are starting to call cognitive atrophy. It's this idea that by constantly outsourcing the heavy lifting, the mental effort, to AI, students might slowly lose the ability to do the deep, critical analysis that is, the bedrock of real learning. All of these risks also feed into a brand new and, frankly, dangerous form of inequality, one that could make the educational divide way deeper than just not having enough laptops ever did. See, for years, the digital divide was all about who had access to technology. The flipped AI divide completely turns that on its head.
In this future, the wealthy students get high-quality instruction from actual human teachers, while students from lower-income communities are left with AI-mediated learning. This threatens to make education less equitable, not more.
So, faced with this really complex landscape of promise and peril, what's the path forward? Well, the global conversation is definitely shifting. It's moving away from just excitement and toward a serious focus on governance and safety.
You could say we're moving from a period of wide-open experimentation to an era of accountability. The time for just throwing these tools out there and seeing what happens, that's over. Now, the really hard work of building guardrails has to begin.
And this isn't just talk. Major international bodies like UNESCO and the OECD are actively building frameworks to guide the ethical use of AI. They're creating competency standards for teachers, they're making ethical recommendations for developers, and they're doing evidence-based analysis to help out policymakers. A really key solution that's emerging from all this work is what's called the human-in-the-loop model. And look, this is not about AI replacing teachers. It's about augmenting them. The whole idea is that technology should always serve a teacher's professional judgment, with the educator staying firmly in the driver's seat as the main decision-maker, validator, and ethical guide. At the end of the day, building a truly human-centric future means we have to prioritize teacher autonomy and student agency. AI literacy can't just be about learning how to use the tools. It has to be a foundational ethical requirement, teaching students how to thrive in a world with AI. And none of that can happen without strict data protection and mandatory human oversight. Look, AI is here, and it is already rewriting the fundamental rules of education. So the question this leaves us with isn't whether this change is going to happen, but who gets to decide what it looks like? Who should be the one holding the pen?